Hi everybody, welcome back. You've seen the before and after for my patio makeover, and now I'd like to share with you some easy DIYs that I did to create a cohesive, pulled together look. Now, a lot of the stuff that I'm using is either a curb find or thrift store find. They've been given to me, but by using a color palette that's cohesive, I was able to pull all kinds of things together. So let's take a look at some of these projects. First makeover are these cool metal chairs. I love these chairs. I've always wanted some. And when we moved into this house, somebody left them at the end of the street for trash pickup. So I ran and grabbed them, of course. And they're in great condition. All they needed to have was a refresh of paint. So now instead of being green, they're going to be vintage teal. Well, this was a piece from my stash. It was an old tablecloth that I had thrifted about a year ago. So it got chopped up and made into some beautiful pillowcases. I say pillowcases because deliberately left one edge open so that the pillow stuffing can come out and they can be washed. The ottomans were an auction find. I paid 25 cents for both of them. And I loved the bamboo. I loved the mid-century lines, but the color was a disaster and so was the fabric. So we painted those the vintage teal and then covered it with what was left from that tablecloth. And a little pro tip for you, if you have things out on your patio or porch and you're concerned about mold or mildew, use a sheet of plastic. I just recycle old shower curtain liners and use that to protect the fabric. It will keep you from having any moisture issues. It creates a moisture barrier. Folding chairs were a nice, easy choice. I already had them. They were in excellent condition. They just needed a bit of a scrubbing and an additional coat of black paint to freshen them up. And then I had cushions to put on them so that they would be comfortable around the table. To make cushions for the folding chairs, I had red tie-on cushions that I had bought at Costco years ago. And to update them, we made little cozies out of thrifted napkins I'd had in my stash for quite a while. And they're the perfect size. If you make a tight seam allowance, then you can just run up an envelope out of 2 napkins and you can slide the cushion right into it. The pallets were another curbside find, so completely free. Shot them with the flat black. Didn't try to make them perfect, wanted them to be as rustic as the wall that they are up against. They added dimensionality. They allowed me to bring the black up onto the white, and they created vertical storage for plants. I hung them using some short pieces of galvanized chain and zip ties. I already had several beautiful lanterns that hang and I can place in different positions. I had a lot of plant stands that were either various colors or were in various assorted states of rusting. So by unifying them with a single can of Rust-Oleum flat black paint, I was able to create something fresh and harmonious out of pieces that I already had. Reusing often means you're going to have a lot of different looks, so you can unify everything with one single paint color. In this case, I'm using Kitty! You are using Rust-Oleum flat black to create that nice, clean, cohesive look. Everything got a nice clear coat of the flat black, and I had some odds and ends that I wanted to incorporate and upcycle. This is a chair where the back was taken off, and I used that as a small table. And then I had these pieces. One is apart from a solar light and one is from a plant caddy where the wheels don't work. By ripping those wheels off and painting everything black, I was able to pair them with two candlestick holders and create some unique plant stands. Table was just ancient, and by running our wire bristle brush over it first and removing a lot of the chippy rust and then painting it black, it has a brand new life. Most often I use terracotta pots because they allow the roots of the plant to breathe and to wick moisture. But I do have some pots, like the plastic pot here, which was a cash pot. By refreshing the color on it and then drilling holes in the bottom, I was able to reuse it as a very large pot instead of just a cash pot. I also spray painted some clay pots that were different colors and kind of created a more cohesive look with those. I like to elevate the pots a little bit if I can, not just have them sitting directly on the ground. So I used a silicone adhesive on an old lamp base and then put the saucer on with that. The reason I used that instead of like Gorilla Glue or a hot glue is because the silicone will flex as the temperatures rise and fall, and as humidity rises and falls, the silicone will flex where the glue might just break. I had found the vintage dry sink in Brush and Bulky Day. So I snagged that because always looking for storage, always looking for doors that close. And it was in great shape, but it was very the paint was nasty and it was getting rusty. So by hitting that with the Rust-Oleum flat black, it created a clean, cohesive look. I didn't care what it looked like on the inside and moved that over to the other wall so that I would have a little bit of storage and space up there. And then put a piece of butcher block countertop on top of it that has been rubbed down real good with teak oil, and that way it can withstand some moisture and all, but it holds my candelabra very nicely. These fabulous old sconces came from a job that my husband was doing. I've had them for about 4 years, holding on to them, knowing I was going to do something, but not knowing what. So I took them apart. I took the old metal shade off, which of course I'll save because that'll become something, and then tore out the guts of it basically so that I could slide the plastic stem of the solar light over the existing stem that was already in the old lights. The fountain was probably one of my favorite projects. I found this beautiful copper pot at Goodwill. The first thing to do was to see if I could actually get it to hold water. So I filled it with water and I could find several areas of leaks. I used a tube of silicone sealer. I just cut it with my knife, opened it up so that I could get handfuls of it and smear the inside of it real good, sealed up. I let it dry overnight. Found a copper strainer. I'm not really actually sure what this piece is, guys. It's like a wall hanging or a strainer or something. It had holes in it. That's what mattered. And I loved the fact that it was the right width. It has a little lip on it, so it would sit on the edge of the pot with no modifications necessary. I already had the fountain pump in my stash. So the other thing was finding the clear tubing to go onto the pump. And I looked at several places, and I really didn't want to buy it in 20 feet sections. I only needed approximately 6 to 8 inches of it. Brought it home and discovered that I needed something a little bit longer, but I easily took a drinking straw and it fit right down into that tubing and fit perfectly. It's bright blue. That wasn't my first choice, but what are you going to do? I simply put a couple of bricks into the fountain to add weight so that it wouldn't tip over easily, and to create a pedestal for the pump to sit on. I didn't want the pump to be all the way down at the bottom. Then I slid the strainer piece that I had drilled a hole in, filled it with some glass marbles because that will help with keeping drainage, but also creating a little bit more sound as the water moves through the pot. Put in a few pieces of labradorite, some sphagnum moss, and a little bit of reindeer moss, just a little bit. I used ocotillo rib to create camouflage for the blue straw, and also to create something for the water to come up out of that looked natural. Added in some moss around the straw, put in a vintage votive holder that holds a candle so that I can have firelight with my water, and just a couple of pieces of decorative pieces, and plugged it in, and voila, I have a fountain.